All right, Akim. Shalom, shalom. All praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh, Bashim Yahushai, Bashim Rakah Kodash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone for teaching us his truth. And salutations to the sincere Akim and Akwath. Listen. May the blessing of election be upon your house. My name is Brother Requai. I'm back in here with another quick and Lord's will as always an edifying lesson. And for today's lesson, I kind of just wanted to go through this article here. It says, keeping watch over their flocks and shepherds of the nativity. So essentially it's going into the occupation of a shepherd, right? And this is something that is very key and sticks out a lot in Luke the second chapter, and it leaves a lot of holes for questioning, because in the Catholic Church, they perpetuate, and even on media as well, you see it in different cartoons, and it's solidified in this idea that the Savior, Yahushua, who they unknowingly call Jesus, they perpetuate this idea that he was born in December, in the middle of winter, and also December 25th specifically. I just wanted to bring on a couple precepts and read this article, because people don't seem to understand. One, they don't understand a lot of history of what actually took place, and then secondly, they don't understand even, like, for example, the calendar system that we have today. The calendar system, all these different months of the year and days of the week that we know use, like, for example, today's Thursday. All these different days are all named after a lot of Greco and Roman gods, right? So you're not going to see December, June, February, you're not going to see these days of the week and months of the year on, for example, in the scriptures, right? Another thing is the Good Friday and the Easter Sunday and so on and so forth, right? But people don't, have that understanding. Their understanding is simply a perpetuation of what they see on TV and in Hollywood, and it's reinforced in different cartoons, movies, the Catholic Church, it's essentially an example of gross darkness, right? So, without me rambling on too much, let me just get into it. So it's quite a long article, so I'm just going to read a couple paragraphs here, strictly speaking about the shepherding. And what I'll do also, I'll put it in the description of my video here, so you can check it out as well, because they did have some interesting references also. So I'm just going to read a little bit of it, and here it says, shepherding was a common occupation in ancient Judea and other parts of the Levant in general. It says the combination of pasture and rugged terrain made sheep and goats ideal to raise in an area. So, for brothers who don't know, a pasture is essentially a place where sheep and cattle would graze, right? Just just a side note, like, for example, in the Caribbean, we call a field a pasture, for example, like what people would call here a field, like where you might see children walking around or playing playing soccer or cricket or any of these, baseball or wherever, right? We call it a pasture, and actually as well, in the morning time you would see a lot of like older Israelite men, or even maybe mostly men, actually I would say that they'll be grazing on the side of the field. You would see the sheep or the goats that would be grazing on the field, or you might see them grazing on the side of the road. For example, they might be, the shepherd might cut some of the bush, and you would see the sheep and the goats. They'll be, eating the bushes and eating the greens, and that's on the field or on the side of the road. So that was something that was very common that I saw, right? And we still see that. That's still being done even to this day, actually, right? It also even goes to show that we are those people. Anyways, I just wanted to make that side note, but let me just continue. It says, the fat-tailed sheep was the variety of most likely raised during that time. It says, sheep were an important part of the region's economy, as they were used for their meat, milk, wool, fat, skins, and horns. It says they were also essential for the animal sacrifices, which were part of necessary. It says J-ish, but I'm just going to say Israelite practices. In short, if a family did not own a flock themselves, they likely knew someone who did, and seeing shepherds at work with their flocks was a daily sight for most. Right, so this was a common thing back then. Right, it says the Israelite people had a long history of sheep herding, dating back when they were a nomadic people. For families that owned flocks, it was a customary practice that the youngest son would be shepherd, especially if a family were also farmers, since other family members would work other duties. Owners of large herds might also hire shepherds to tend to their sheep. Right? Just bear with me 1 second. All right, so continuing on, and here's really the point I wanted to just hit the nail on the head, right? So it says, shepherds' work revolved around providing food for their flocks of sheep based on the season. So it says in the spring, pastures would be abundant in the region, so sheep would graze near the shepherd's home village. The grain harvest took place in the spring in Israel. Sheep would also be allowed to graze in the fields after grain was collected, and the poor were allowed to collect what remained after harvest. It says J-ish, but it's an Israelite custom, right? Essentially when you reap the corners of the land, you leave some back for the poor, right? That was kind of like the I don't want to say it was like a social. I don't want to say a social credit system. It was like that the best word to say is it was like a social welfare system, basically, right? That's found in Leviticus. As a matter of fact, let me see if I can find that. Okay, here it is. Leviticus 19:9, and it says, "And when ye reap the harvest of your land, thou shalt not wholly reap the corners of the field, neither thou shalt gather the gleaning of thy harvest. And thou shalt not glean thy vineyard, neither thou shalt gather every grape of thy vineyard. Thou shalt leave them for the poor and stranger. I am the Lord Yahweh, thy power." Right? So, these were things that were part of our customs. But here's the point I really just wanted to hit. It says, in summer, shepherds would have to lead flocks into pastures from their towns. In late fall and winter, when pasture was most scarce, shepherds would stable sheep at their homes, and feed them. The birth of Yahushai likely occurred in the spring, as the shepherds were in the pastures near the town of Bethlehem, right? So it's just showing you the dynamic that, this is what happened at these particular times a year. And as a matter of fact, I was just looking it up also. When you look at the climate, around this time of year, it's it's a lot colder, around this time of year. Right, so to see an abundance of sheep, and you see the sheep tending out to, sheep being tended to, by the shepherds at night, it would be impossible for the Lord to be born around this time of year, right? So what they're really referencing is hold on, let me just grab it. Is Luke, the 2nd chapter, and it says. I'll start at verse 1, and it says, "And it came to pass in those days there went out a decree from Caesar Augustus that all the world should be taxed. And this taxing was first made when Cyrenius was governor of Assyria, and went to be taxed everyone into his own city. And Joseph went up from Galilee out of the city of Nazareth into Judea unto the city of David, which is called Bethlehem, because he was of the house and lineage of David. And before I continue, another quick point that they also like to bamboozle the minds of these people is that, Joseph, essentially was the Lord's stepfather. Like, he was just a random guy. Like, he was of that particular house of David, right? This is a lineage that we're discussing here, right? That you can find that in I believe it's Matthew chapter 1. It goes into the genealogy of Yahushua and Mashiach, right? So it says, to be taxed with Mary, his espoused wife, being great with child. So it was that while they were here, the days were accomplished that she should be delivered, and she brought forth her firstborn son, and wrapped him in swaddling clothes, and laid him in a manger, because there was no room for them in the inn. Right. This is the point, really. Verse 8, and it says, and there were in the same country shepherds abiding in the field, keeping watch over their flock at night. So they're not going to be doing that in the dead middle of winter, right? The Lord was more likely to be born in around the time of the springtime, right? That's where renewal happens. And that's when you're going to see an abundance of sheep being grazing on those pastures, right? You're not going to see that in the dead middle of the cold, right? Where there's very little vegetation, right? So, I just wanted to bring that and read that as well, because people perpetuate these different ideas that the Lord was born yesterday. Like, they're going to see December in the scriptures. Like, they're going to see the 25th in the scriptures and all that, right? Let's get... This is 2 Corinthians 10 verse 3, and it says, for though we walk in the flesh, we do not war after the flesh. For our weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty through the Most High Yahweh, to the pulling down of strongholds, casting down imaginations and every high thing that exalteth itself against the knowledge of the Most High, and bringing into captivity every thought to the obedience of a Mashiach Yahushai, right? So, this is part of what we do, to, tear down these different strongholds, because every, single year there's this perpetuation and this is constant of dialogue that people think that, the Lord was born, yesterday, and we're losing the meaning of so-called Christmas, and it's become a lot more commercialized. Like, yes, it's a very highly commercialized holiday, but people think that the Lord, essentially was born yesterday, right? We're not we don't partake in these festivals, because this is a very unholy day. It's not a holy day, right? Let me get another thing they also like to discuss is surrounding the story of Yahushai's birth. They also like to say that Mary, she was impregnated by the angel and all this kind of stuff, right? So there's a lot of folly and there's a lot of madness that comes out of the Catholic Church. This is what the Catholic Church likes to perpetuate, like, all this is makes sense, and people don't actually question and look into these things, right? The Catholic Church kind of gets a pass for everything that they say, number one, and even the lewd acts and the lewd behaviors that comes out of them, right? So this is I just wanted to get a quick precept. This is 1 Corinthians 15. I'll start at verse 39, and it says, all flesh is not the same flesh, but there is one kind of flesh of men, another flesh of beasts, another of fishes, and another of birds. There are also celestial bodies and bodies terrestrial, and the glory of the celestial is one, and the glory of terrestrial is another, right? So what we have is a terrestrial body, and the word terrestrial goes back to the word terre in the French, meaning earth or soil, right? So we have earthly bodies. We don't have the same bodies as angels, right? So that cuts this understanding that the Lord, Mary was impregnated by the angel, and all this folly and madness that is constantly being pushed out by the Catholic Church, right? So there's another point also that really was sticking out to me as well, because in the beginning of Luke, the second chapter, it says that, all the world should be taxed, right? And, something I was thinking about was the fact that the taxation, normally what we have and what we're living in is a revised version today of the Roman Empire. Its infrastructure, its philosophies, its its social, how do you call it? So, social fabric, so to speak. And that which is then is now. And normally taxation occurs in the springtime. It doesn't occur in the dead middle of winter, right? But next week you're gonna see a bunch of fools, going around and saying, Happy New Year in the dead middle of winter, right? Our people are caught up in that too, because it's mostly our people, and even it's mostly our women, I should say, that's really into the Catholic Church, right? And really thinking that they're doing something virtuous by going to church on Sunday and going to church on the 25th and whatever and whatnot, and thinking that they're getting close to the Most High. And this is, and all these holidays of this world are just folly. The Lord is not pleased with these particular feast days that you Israelites celebrate. This is Second Corinthians 4 verse 3, and it says, "But if our gospel be hid, it be hid to them that are lost, whom the God of this world hath blinded their minds, of them which believe not, lest the light of the glorious gospel of a Mashiach Yahushai, who is the image of the Most High Yahweh, should shine upon them." Right? So there's a strong gross darkness over the minds of our people, because they strongly believe in the narrative that is being sold to them on TV and in Hollywood and the Catholic Church, right? And then when we show them through the proof, using the scriptures, our people essentially they reject it, right? So anyways, I kind of just wanted to bring that out, and just read that. But hopefully, Lord's will, as always, this lesson was edifying. I just like to give all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. Until next time, I say Shalom.